Hello everyone, and welcome back for another RGB RPG's DM prep guide. Today we're taking a look at session 22 of our Descent into Avernus campaign, and as always there's going to be quite a few spoilers ahead, so if you are a player or plan on being a player in Descent into Avernus, go ahead and click away. But if you're a DM who wants some insight into how another DM might prep for these sessions, session by session, go ahead and stick around and check out this series. So, the last couple of sessions the party had arrived at Fort Knucklebone, helped out there as much as they could while waiting for Mad Maggie to prepare a ritual to unlock Lulu's memories. Mad Maggie had offered to help the party and assist them in any way that she could, and the only price that she asked was to be able to savor Lulu's traumatic memories. So, while the party was waiting for Mad Maggie to prepare this ritual, they went around the complex of Fort Knucklebone and helped out the gang of the Knucklebone's gang as much as they could in order to curry favor with Mad Maggie. They were successful in every venture that they took part in, and were eventually able to get to that dream dive with Lulu. Mad Maggie had finished preparing for the ritual, called them all in, and they were able to dive through Lulu's memories, and some of them she had locked away rather thoroughly, so they had to fight their way through some things to get into those memories. But eventually they were able to see what happened to Lulu and see that she had taken the sword along with one of Zariel's captains and tried to hide it away, knowing that Zariel's angelic essence still held somewhat inside of the sword. So her and Yale, the angelic commander of Zariel's armies, fled with the sword and hid it somewhere on the plains of Avernus. And Lulu was able to see that, and by the time the dream journey was over, she was convinced that she knew the location of this place, someplace called the Bleeding Citadel. She explained to the party, or the party saw, how she and Yale rammed the sword into the ground, and up around it, this radiant citadel erupted. Avernus trying to swallow it, but getting a little bit ahead of ourselves there. Essentially, the party knows that the sword is on Avernus, and it is in some place called the Bleeding Citadel. Lulu is convinced that she knows the location of this place, and is eager to get the party on the road again and out there looking for it. Mad Maggie, so incredibly pleased with the results of the ritual and all of the assistance the party gave at the fort, has gifted them lots of stuff. A infernal war machine, several items, soul coins, provisions for the road, all kinds of stuff like that. And so with that, allies behind them, they head back out into the plains of Avernus. While on the road, they did encounter an Avernian warlord. There's lots of wandering encounters that are happening out while the party is traveling through the plains of Avernus. And Raga Draga, the Wereboar warlord, is one of the first ones that I really like to throw at the party, because it's a really good chance for them to get the sense of there are marauding gangs out here to watch out for. And so the fight with Raga Draga was an interesting one. I found that a lot of parties really enjoy to kind of set traps. You gotta move, baby. Really enjoy to set traps for these war machines. Instead of going on a Mad Max style car v car type of chase fight scene, they like to be more methodical. I think it might be from a place of wanting to fight in a territory that they're familiar with, that they set a trap for the war machine, or otherwise convince the drivers to stop or do something that allows them to dismount and attack the machines in a way that they're more familiar with their spells, with their weapons. So yeah, so that's what happened this time. They summoned some animals to dig a big hole, and then lured this band of wereboars and wererats into that hole, and then attacked once they had fallen in and weren't able to get out with their war machine. So that's what we're picking up today, is after that fight. So the first thing that we get to with the paths ahead is going to be negotiating the surrender of the wereboar and his remaining crew, most of which who's fled already. So yeah, he is going to be unwilling to give up his machine, but he'll give up pretty much anything else, offering even offering his men up to the party as in exchange for his life and his machine. If the party insists, he'll likely sabotage the machine rather than giving up his own life and the structural integrity of his war machine, rather than allowing it to fall into the hands of anyone else. So yeah, if the party plays it smart, they could walk away from there with quite a bit of supplies, items, and maybe even a couple of servants, if that's the kind of thing that they want to try and do. So yeah, after that, they finally do make their way ahead to the place that Lulu thinks the sword is at, Haruman's Hill. Haruman's Hill is one of the darker scenes in this adventure. Generally speaking, this entire adventure is very dark, but this is one that you especially want to make sure that your players would be comfortable with. Luckily, the party that I have, they will have no problem with this scene at all, but definitely gauge the reaction of your players to some of the darker elements of this campaign and see if this is a section that you may want to make some adjustments to, or be careful about how you run it. So Haruman's Hill is essentially a punishment ground for the souls of the soldiers that abandoned Zariel in Avernus. Hundreds, if not, there's several dozen, if not up to and over 100 soldiers here that are essentially crucified on iron trees of infernal iron with these spikes jutting out of them. They have been brought here, impaled onto these trees, and are left to suffer eternal torment for the crimes against Zariel. So yeah, super dark, and it's one of those things that reminds you where you are. This adventure takes place in hell. This is hell. There are people suffering here. There are souls bound to eternal torment in this place. So this is really the first opportunity that we get a look at that and see the reality of that situation for these souls and the reality of where the characters are. Fort Knucklebone was kind of a lighthearted, gruesome but lighthearted introduction to this place. You know, it's a violent place. Life is cheap here, but this is the first chance they get to really see the nature of Avernus and its purpose. So yeah, these soldiers are impaled on these trees, and it's a massive hill leading up to a summit. Obviously, the player's first instinct is normally to go to the top of this summit. If for some reason they decide not to go that route, Lulu will encourage them to. But as they're climbing up to the top of this hill, these soldiers will be begging them to be pulled down, begging them for release. Any soul that they release from this will be released to whatever plane that they had initially been bound to go to. Most of them have been pulled here by Zariel's will and the pact that they made with her. But once they are released from these trees, they will disintegrate into a radiant dust, and then their souls are bound for wherever they were meant to be. This will, however, trigger an attack from several sturges. There's hundreds of sturges flying around this place, feasting on the blood of those souls that are trapped here. Tampering with any of them does of course encourage them to attack. This goes on until the party reaches the top of this hill. Once they reach the top, they meet somebody that Lulu recognizes and somebody that recognizes Lulu. A elven man by the name of Jandar Sunstar. He was one of Zariel's captains, and he has been bound to a particularly gruesome fate. He is the one who called for the retreat and pulled Zariel's men back, abandoning her there, and Jandar Sunstar is the man who personally closed the gate behind them. As such, he is suffering quite extraordinarily here in Avernus. He has a lot to say to the party, a lot of different things that he can reveal to them, but the main thing is that the sword is not here. Lulu was incorrect. She's a very excitable, very impulsive creature, as the party has been able to see so far, and she remembered this place, and the first thing that she remembered was, oh, there's this hill, and there's a place that they passed by, and a place that they rested, and Lulu recognized the landmark and said, that's it, that's where the sword must be. I remember that place. When she gets here and sees Jandar, she realizes that she was mistaken, and that she needs to further reflect on her memories before she can truly find out what's going on. While this is happening, Haruman, one of Zariel's generals, one of Zariel's generals who died in the fighting here on Avernus and became one of her generals here in Avernus, continuing to serve her, is in charge of overseeing the suffering and the punishment of these soldiers and Jandar Sunstar. He is on his way back. If the party tampers with Jandar or stays for too long, Haruman appears. That is heralded by the wails of all of these imprisoned souls. They can sense his approach and know that their warden, their torturer, is on his way. So all of these bodies impaled on these trees begin to wail in horror as this man approaches, and just as that begins, the Sturges begin to swarm the party. Book calls for 20. I just continue to send Sturges at the party until Haruman shows up, and then they scatter. I find that's a much more exciting way to do it than just have an arbitrary number of 20 of them, because one AoE spell could knock out half or more of them, and then they just run. You really want them I really like them to encounter Haruman here. It's a very dangerous fight, and it's one of the times in Avernus that a character death is possible, entirely possible. It's a very dangerous fight. So when Haruman arrives, whether or not they've freed Jandar from this place, he will begin to attack the party for tampering with his wards, as he would put it. Haruman is a especially dangerous fight. He is a Narzugon on a nightmare, infernal tack, and everything. He has full control over this nightmare, and that gives him a fly speed, a impressive running speed. He's very dangerous. Super high AC and necrotic damage added to every one of his attacks. So yes, extremely dangerous opponent. It is a single entity encounter when the party does fight him, so because the surges scatter once he gets there, so it's not unmanageable for a party of 5, but it's definitely dangerous. While the party fights with Haruman, a group of Hellwasps sneaks up. Obviously, stealth checks. The party may notice these creatures approaching and decide to try and do something about it. But they sneak up and abduct Lulu. They will snatch her up and fly off with her to their nest while the party is busy with Haruman. That generally causes mass panic among the party, as is to be expected. But generally, deal with Haruman, go rescue Lulu. Time is of the essence, so they usually go straight away, no rests. And then we get to the Hellwasp nest. So the Hellwasp nest is its whole thing. It's essentially just a short mini dungeon for the party to go through. They ascend up through several layers of this floating wasp's nest. It is gruesome in its own right, and it's essentially held aloft by the corpses of angels that devils have brought here and bound into these nests as kind of just their own cruel way of punishing the angels, of just tormenting them because they can, type of things with these infernal beings. The wasps cocoon them inside of this strange amber type of substance, and they are what keeps these wasps' nests floating above the surface of Avernus. They are tethered with infernal chains, and the party will be able to track the hell wasps to this place and eventually fight their way through it to rescue Lulu. The DM's Guild supplement that I reference from time to time has some great maps for that. If you don't want to use that black and white map, especially if you're on Roll20. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. If you're on Roll20, try to avoid using those black and white maps. You know, we're on a digital medium. We have the ability to get these types of images on there with relative ease. There's no reason not to. They're out there. They're inexpensive. Some of them are even free. So yeah, any chance that you get, replace those black and white maps with some color. All right, what else we got? Once the party does rescue Lulu, she will admit that she was wrong about Haruman's Hill, apologizes profusely for having led the party into such a dangerous situation, and lets them know that she needs more time to reflect. But there is one thing that she is sure of. There are 2 potential locations: a place where demons are destroyed and a place where demons are made. If the party can get to one of those 2 locations, Lulu feels confident that she will be able to lead them towards the next stepping stone to finding Zariel's sword, to finding the Bleeding Citadel, the Radiant Citadel. Probably shouldn't call the Radiant Citadel, as there is a book coming out for that, but the Bleeding Citadel is what it's called here. I go back and forth calling it, have been for years, but the Bleeding Citadel, and Lulu will lead them to one of those 2 locations. She will say it very specifically like that. There are 2 places that I feel hold the key. A place where demons are created and a place where demons are destroyed. Whichever way the party goes will dictate what kind of path will be laid ahead of them from here forward. So I do like to mix it up and kind of drop some from one another into those two different places, but they are two very different adventure paths, Path of Demons and the Path of Devils, with very different encounters and very different circumstances, all leading towards the Radiance, or towards the Bleeding Citadel. So yeah, big decision. Potentially at the end of this chapter, at the end of this session, it's unlikely they'll get all the way through the Hellwasp nest today, but if they happen to rescue Lulu from the Hellwasps, or if they happen to quickly deal with Haruman and then make their way over to the Hellwasp nest and get all the way through that, get Lulu and get out, we could very well be heading towards the Path of Demons or Devils today. So yeah, we have our regular NPCs, Gargoth, Lulu, and now we have Jandar. We talked about him before. Fort Knucklebone is no longer on there. We've got Haruman's Hill now, which is thoroughly detailed in this. We've got the Wereboar, the Wererats that are remaining at the encounter with Raga Draga. That could turn into a fight. They could try to fight them, try to continue fighting them. Then, of course, we have the dozens of Sturges at Haruman's Hill. We have Haruman, who is in Narzugon, mounted on his Nightmare, and then Hellwasp. The biggest item that they might get a chance to get their hands on today is this Infernal Attack. Excellent item. It allows them to use a Nightmare as a mount. And then if they get to the Hellwasp nest, we have some rolling on DMG treasure tables for them. So yeah. Yeah, that's about what we got today, everybody. Big turning point session coming up real soon. Unlikely to get to that exact turning point today, but Haruman's Hill is just an amazing section of this book. It really highlights a lot of the things that people would expect from Avernus that we haven't gotten just yet. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Remember that these prep videos do arrive on my Patreon a full month before they arrive on YouTube, so if you'd like to see them early, go ahead and check them out on there. The link will be below. But as always, thanks for watching, everybody, and we will see you in the next one.